Hi friends, welcome back to Hebraic Creations. I ended the last video saying we would look at other false teachings in the church, in particular the dangerous theology that has caused many Jews to reject Yeshua. I used to think Jews didn't believe Yeshua was the Messiah because they weren't taught that he fulfilled the suffering servant prophecy in Isaiah 53. Eitan Bar tells why Jews were not taught this in his online article and video entitled Isaiah 53, the Forbidden Chapter. That can be found at oneforisrael.org. He said that rabbis used to read Isaiah 53 in synagogues until it became a point of contention. After that, it was omitted from the synagogue Torah readings. Those were sort of like our read the Bible in a year type of plans. In an online Jews for Jesus article, Rachmiel Frydland tells how Isaiah 53 was even skipped over in Hebrew schools, which is disturbing, but he uncovered quotes from rabbis as early as the 2nd century who report they believed Isaiah 53 was about the anticipated Messiah. So Jews knew a long time ago who that prophecy was about, but they decided to hide it. I also found a YouTube video going back to 2015 of a young guy interviewing Israeli Jews who had never heard of the Forbidden Chapter. This young guy then had them read it out loud and asked who that described. Invariably, they said it sounded like Jesus. So Isaiah 53 is it the long lost key that will unlock the Gospels for the Jewish community? Well, it may be part of the solution, but there are still other issues that need to be resolved. If you recall in previous videos, I exposed two big issues in the church. First, the abhorrent omissions and additions agenda that affects our modern Bibles. Second, the Hellenization of the Gospels with faulty translators and interpretations. These two things have obscured the true Hebrew Yeshua and exalted a Greek, Torah-trashing Jesus, which most certainly does not fit the description of the Messiah the Jews are seeking. Here's why. Consider the two warnings Moses gives the Israelites about prophets. First, if a prophet's words do not come to pass, they are not a true prophet of Yehovah. That can be found in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 20 to 22. See the malevolence behind the fabrication of Eusebius's doctrine that attempted to nullify the Jonah sign and imply Yeshua was a false prophet. Second, if a prophet does signs and wonders but disparages the Torah, don't heed him. That's in Deuteronomy chapter 13, verses 1 through 5. See why our false perception that Yeshua has voided the law of Moses makes Yeshua someone the Jews would not heed? That very idea that Yeshua voided the law is the false teaching in the church that causes Jews to reject Yeshua. Some may question whether it's even accurate to call Yeshua a prophet. Most of us think of him only as a savior. But Yeshua himself claimed to be a prophet when he complained in Matthew 13, verse 57, that a prophet is not without honor, but in his own country and among his own kin and in his own house. And Yeshua wasn't just any prophet, he was the prophet, which is a messianic reference. Everywhere we find the word prophet in the scriptures with a capital P. Moses foretells a future prophet, capital P, who will be like him. So what made Moses so special? First of all, He was the mediator between Jehovah and the people. So is Yeshua. Second, he performed incredible miracle signs and wonders. So did Yeshua. And third, Jehovah spoke to Moses mouth to mouth, which means face to face, versus in dreams and visions like with many of the other prophets, like Elijah, Elisha, and Daniel, etc. That was the truth with Yeshua too. Consider Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 10 through 11. There has not arisen a prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, in all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt. That is, until Yeshua came along. The Israelites' anticipation of the prophet, capital P, is evident in John chapter 1, verse 21 to 25, when the people asked John the Baptist if he is the one. But he never did any signs and wonders. After Yeshua miraculously feeds the 5,000 in John chapter 1, verse 21 to 25, the people decide Yeshua is indeed the prophet with a capital P. The disciples noted he was a prophet, but not necessarily the big P prophet. Then Peter dispels all their doubts that Yeshua is the prophet, capital P, in Acts chapter 3, verse 22, and chapter 7, verse 37, when he quotes the two Deuteronomy chapter 18 verses where Moses predicts the coming prophet with a big P, who we should hear, or Shema. It's true Yeshua was like Moses in three important ways: as mediator, doing signs and wonders, and having face-to-face intimacy with Yehovah. But did he have prophecies come to pass besides the Jonah sign? Yes, he accurately predicted his death and resurrection, as noted in Luke chapter 9, verse 22. He predicted Peter's denial in Luke chapter 22, verse 34, and the temple's destruction, which is noted in Luke chapter 21, verse 5 through 6. Okay, so far so good. But wouldn't Yeshua be disqualified as the prophet, capital P, for teaching people to ignore the law of Moses by healing on the Sabbath, turning over the money changer's table, picking and eating grain on the Sabbath, not making his disciples wash their hands before eating bread, and telling the layman to pick up his mat and walk on the Sabbath? Actually, every one of the rules Yeshua broke were man-made, not in the Torah. Remember, Jehovah explicitly forbids such additions and subtractions to his word. In Matthew 23, verses 2 to 3, Yeshua warns the people not to be misled by the religious rulers' antics. Let me read. The sages and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, assuming his authority. Therefore, whoever he, Moses, commands you to observe, that observe and do. But do not follow the takanot and ma'asim of the Pharisees, for they say, but they do not do what Moses says to do. There was a literal stone bench in synagogues where elders sat doing two things: pronouncing their man-made rules invented to keep the people in line, and teaching from the Torah, which is the only thing they should have been doing on that bench. It's interesting to note the passages here have caused some confusion due to bad translations. The Greek says they do whatever they command, implying the Pharisees should be obeyed. That's so contradictory. However, the Hebrew says he, whatever he, Moses, commands. They are specifying the importance of heeding Moses. That is more consistent with passages like Matthew 5:17, where Yeshua says he came to fulfill the law of Moses. We see Yeshua has two pet peeves in these passages. Let's read definitions from the Encyclopedia Judaica. What is takanot? These are rules enacted by Pharisees which change or negate biblical law. What is ma'asim? Those are acts of rabbis which serve as legal precedent for righteous behavior. There you go. The Pharisees have basically set up their own religious system. And Yeshua's extreme displeasure about this transgression is recorded in the rest of Matthew chapter 23. His intense denunciation is brutally honest, and as verse 1 states, it's the last warning. Friends, we all need to take Matthew 23 to heart. Not only is false doctrine in the church causing Jews to reject Yeshua, it's causing Yeshua to reject us. That's a lot to chew on. Next time, we will talk about the meaning and consequences of lawlessness. Stay tuned. Shalom.